Mill actually considers 5 objections to his version of utilitarianism in trying to clarify what is implied by his moral theory. And we notice we're only going to discuss 3 of the objections. The first one we discussed was the doctrine of swine, and I mentioned that this was a good objection to Bentham's version of utilitarianism, but because Mill distinguishes between higher order and lower orders of pleasure, a distinction which Bentham uh, did not countenance, did not agree, made sense. Mill is able to claim that higher order pleasures like reading a book, studying, etc., have a high intensity of pleasure, and thus, when we're calculating the number of hedons for every minute, let's say, because we're talking about for a certain period of time of higher order pleasures, that's 10 or 100, maybe 1,000 times greater than bodily pleasures. So that's how utility gets recalculated, considering that there are higher and lower order of pleasures. Now it's kind of interesting because if we're thinking about it, the first objection is that Mill's version of utilitarianism sets a very low standard for morality, right? You're the most moral being on earth is the low life pig. Now what's interesting is the next issue, or the next objection that Mill considers in trying to clarify his theory, is something that's sometimes known as the too high for humanity issue, and that is, it's not that your model, your paradigm of morality, according to this theory, is a pig, but and hence not very demanding of human. But the problem is that it's really too demanding of humans. And here's the way the argument gets formulated around this objection. It said, well, if act utilitarianism is true, then an act is morally right only if it's motivated by what? A desire to promote the general interests of society. It seems to be telling you that if your action is going to be right, you have to always consider how it's going to affect everybody else in terms of their pleasure and pain. What are going to be the consequences for them of pleasure and pain? And in deciding what action to do, you always have to be motivated to make sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of the pleasure and pain of the entire society. So maybe you're working hard, maybe you're getting by, but what does it require that you do? You're now going home, you're going to watch a little TV, relax, read a book or something like that. No, it seems that what you have to do, you have an alternative between doing that or maybe working a second job, getting some more money and giving money to charity, or going to volunteer in a soup kitchen. You can't just kick back and relax. You have to be motivated by this desire to promote the general interest of society. But if we think about it, maybe you shouldn't sit on your behind watching TV and having a good time all the time. But if you're working hard, contributing to society, sometimes certain acts, just kicking back after a long, hard day, you got your paycheck, you gave money to charity, you did some good stuff, you want to have a few minutes to yourself. It seems that that's okay. So it looks like some acts are morally right, even though they're not motivated by a desire to promote the general interest of society. Conclusion from that is, well, act utilitarianism is not right. Is not the principle is not correct. It's not true. So the idea of the underlying idea of this objection, this issue, is that utilitarianism, everybody has to be an angel according to utilitarianism, otherwise you don't meet the moral standard.